The final item of business this evening is members' business debate on motion 18709 in the name of Sandra White on the Charter of Rights for People with Dementia and their Carers, 10th anniversary. And this debate will be concluded without any questions being put. May I ask those members who wish to speak in the debate to press the request to speak buttons, and I call on Sandra White to open the debate for around 7 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer, and I very much welcome the opportunity to host this members' debate on the 10-year anniversary of the Charter of Rights for the People with Dementia and their Carers in Scotland. If I could just update the Chamber on the fact that we had 40 members of the Dementia Choir who were going to sing. Unfortunately, can't wait that length of time and had to leave. My apologies to them, my apologies to the Chamber also that they couldn't wait. We also had a number of other people who are coming in just now. I see Irene Oldfather, which is absolutely fantastic, who Mary Scanlon too, and various others as well. Thank you very much. And I can now actually mention the fact that I would like to recognise those in the public gallery who have championed the Charter. And I thank all members across the Parliament who have signed the motion and given their support in securing this debate. And I believe Professor Miller has been here for quite a while, as has others as well. So thank you so much for your patience in bearing with us as well. I'm sure that you understand. I'm sure that Irene Oldfather, Mary Scanlon and other elected members understand that sometimes this place can be unpredictable. So thank you very much for your patience and for staying here with us. Presiding Officer, the Health and Social Care Alliance Scotland, Alzheimer's Scotland and the University of the West of Scotland mark October 2019 as the 10-year anniversary of the signing of the Charter of Rights for People with Dementia, their carers, and this is happening tonight in the Scottish Parliament, which is a great honour for me to be able to speak to that as well. The Charter of Rights was the initiative of the cross-party group on Alzheimer's and dementia, set up and convened by Irene Oldfather, who was then an MSP, and I know that Irene set this up through family experience of living with dementia, and it really was in response to that particular time that people with dementia and their rights seemed to be invisible, and that was why it was taken up and championed by Irene and others. And I do thank them very much for the dedication and commitment they have put towards this issue. In 2009, it was recognised that people living with dementia are entitled to the same human rights as everyone else. Nevertheless, people living with dementia will still be denied their rights due to social and cultural barriers. These barriers included a lack of understanding within the population, a lack of staff training on how to respect and protect the human rights of people living with dementia, and the Charter adopted United Nations endorsement panel approach, which focuses on the rights of everyone. P, participation in decisions that affect their human rights. A, for the accountability of those responsible for the respect, protection and fulfilment of those human rights. N, for non-discrimination and equality. E, for empowerment, for people to know their rights and how to claim them. And L, for legality in all decisions. Through an explicit link with human rights, legal standards in all processes and outcomes. The aim is to uphold the human rights of people living with dementia within the community and in care facilities in Scotland. The Charter of Rights and its rights-based approach has been fundamental in shaping the development of dementia policy and practice since its publication in 2009. These strategies have driven the commitment to providing high-quality post-diagnostic support, enhancing education and training for health and social care professionals, and improving care in acute hospitals. All very, very important rights, the Presiding Officer. The Charter has brought to the forefront the voices of those whose lived experience of dementia and caring through the Scottish Dementia Working Group and the National Dementia Carers Action Network. All national strategies have been developed in partnership with people with dementia, their carers and a range of organisations and professionals in health and in social care. With an estimated 90,000 people living with dementia in Scotland today, and with an increasingly older population, the numbers of people with dementia will continue to grow. It is a difficult condition for those who live with it, and also for their families and carers. Presiding Officer, I would like to draw members' attention to Alliance Dementia Carers Voices project lead, I think everyone knows him, Tommy Whitelaw, who I know is also in the gallery this evening. Tommy has been at the forefront with his awareness-raising campaigns across Scotland. Tommy's mother was diagnosed with vascular dementia, and he cared for her for 5 years until, sadly, she passed away in 2012. Tommy has continued to use his history to raise much-needed awareness. Signing of the Charter, the Alliance's Dementia Carer Voices project has involved more than 170,000 NHS staff, care home staff and students, enlisted over 24,000 pledges from people, and has been to over 900 locations. And I do think everyone in Scotland has met with Tommy and heard his story, and congratulations, Tommy, very, very much. Presiding Officer, it is without doubt that Scotland has made much progress since 2009. As a result of the Charter of Rights, we have in place some of the most progressive dementia policies in the world, and for this we should be proud. Since the signing of the Charter, improving dementia care has been a priority of this government, and it has remained so. The progress had been forward by hard work and effective contributions at every level. Contribution of practitioners and policymakers alike have been pivotal in moving this on. The Scottish Government is to be recognised and working constructively to make progress in this area, introducing 3 dementia strategies to date, with a 4th to come. Progress has indeed been made since the original motion was debated in 2009, but there is always more to be done. And when I'm closing, Presiding Officer, I would like to raise the issue of more to be done, and I would like to raise the issue of free healthcare for people with advanced dementia. And I do thank the Evening Times and the Herald for highlighting this through their campaign. This is a very real issue affecting people who are very vulnerable. Indeed, we need to look at the assessments of the condition. Is it social care? Is it health care? That's a huge question mark. I know the government is looking at that at the moment. We know that healthcare can be very expensive and out of the reach of many people and their families. And I would ask the Minister, either in summing up or take it back to the Health Cabinet Secretary or Minister, to consider looking at the difference of, basically the condition, the assessment of either social care or health care. And thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Thank you.
We move now to the open debate and speeches of around 4 minutes, please. And Jeremy Balfour, followed by Tom Arthur.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. And can I thank Sandra White for bringing this debate this evening. And in particular, can I welcome those in the gallery as well, and apologise for the lateness that we are running, but it's great to have you here. As Sandra White pointed out in her speech, there are around about 90,000 people in Scotland who have been diagnosed with dementia, and probably that figure is higher if you take those who haven't yet been diagnosed. And we do have an ageing population, and this condition is likely to affect more people as time goes on. I wasn't here, obviously, 10 years ago, but as I've read around this, clearly the Charter was a landmark in dementia and how dementia has progressed in the last 10 years. It introduced a human rights-based approach to health and social care, and I think that is fundamentally important. It has helped shape dementia policy, both within Scottish Government, within this Parliament, but I hope within each of our own political parties as we try to work out how we help those with this condition. And it has, I think, brought the issue particularly of carers to the forefront. The dementia condition is clearly a condition that affects individuals, but it affects the wider family as well. But in my short remarks, I would like to look ahead. Where can we go now in the next 10 years? And 3 quick points to make. I think we have started, and again, Sandra White pointed this out in her excellent speech, we have started to see that people with dementia and their families are equal members of our community. I still think there is still some social stigma about talking about dementia within your family. I think some communities still hide it away, don't want to acknowledge it. And I think we have to get to a place where families, individuals, communities can talk about it very openly and we feel that they are part of the community. And I know all of us want to see that happen. I think, secondly, we have to make sure that those with dementia and their families do have an active voice, can participate in the decision-making policies, not only of Scottish Government, but of local authorities, of your local communities, and obviously within this Parliament. And it's important that we have ambassadors out there pushing us as politicians in regard to the decisions that we make. But thirdly, and I think perhaps from my constituents, from the people I talk to, from those that I'm in contact with in my own family, we still need to look at, are the workforce getting the appropriate training to deal with people with dementia? And when I talk about the workforce, I talk about it in its widest definition, whether it is medical intervention, whether it is social care, or whether it is help within nursing homes and other such places like that. But I do think we have to prioritise that those who work with families and for those with dementia have the appropriate training. I think it goes beyond just that. I think it goes people who deal with them in pharmacies, people who deal with them in other social settings, have to understand that the language that they use, that the way that they communicate, that the way they explain things has to be done in an appropriate way. So I think we've come a long way in 10 years, and I think we can take credit collectively in that regard. I do think there's progress still to be made, and I hope those in the gallery and others out there can keep pushing us as politicians to make the appropriate changes that will make their lives easier and their families. Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer.
Call Tom Arthur, to be followed by Rhoda Grant.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I'd like to begin by thanking my colleague Sandra White for securing this debate, and I'd also like to join Sandra White and Jeremy Balfour in welcoming our guests to the gallery, and also extending my apologies for the fact that we're now only beginning this debate well past the witching hour for this Parliament. I only intend to make a few remarks. Firstly, I want to thank all those involved in both the inception of the Charter of Rights and also those who have worked to deliver on it over the last 10 years and those committed to building on it going forward. My remarks, I just want to centre around the issue of participation, because having high-level strategy is clearly important, but ultimately what matters is delivering it and how that changes the circumstances for those that these high-level strategies are designed to actually impact upon. It's what happens on the ground. And I've witnessed firsthand in my constituency some of the excellent work that has been undertaken to improve the well-being and opportunities of those with dementia and those who care for people with dementia. Just two organisations I would like to mention are Johnston Dementia Friendly and Lochwinnock Dementia Friendly, both relatively new organisations, but who are already blazing a trail across Renfrewshire to improve the lives of people with dementia and their carers. Earlier on today, I was speaking with Karen McShane, who set up the Dementia Friendly Johnston, and they're already pushing ahead. They have engagement with Scottish Opera, with Scottish Ballet, with day trips for people with dementia and their carers, and that is making a profound difference. In Lochwinnock, which has now been established for about 2 years, Lochwinnock Dementia Friendly, we regularly have their tea dances where I regularly get shown up for not being able to do the slosh. We also engage in a lot of activities which empower people with dementia and their carers. Another aspect I just want to very briefly touch upon is for those with dementia and those who care for people with dementia who are in employment. My understanding is that they are currently potentially 18% of people under age 65 with dementia in the UK who continue to work after diagnosis, and 93% of working carers in the UK reported that looking after someone with dementia has affected their capacity to work. It's because of this I have tried to, in my time in Parliament, be a champion for the Carer Positive Initiative. This is a Scottish Government-backed scheme delivered by Carers Scotland, which seeks to recognise and support those employers who have workplace practices which recognise the unique challenges that those who combine working with caring responsibilities face. And I've certainly tried to encourage as many employers across my constituency of Renfrewshire South to become carer positive employers. And I would just conclude by once again urging members across the chamber, if you haven't already, become a carer positive employer, and Please engage with businesses and organisations across your constituencies and regions to encourage them to become carer-positive employers. And let's look forward to the next 10 years of making the Charter a reality for people. Thank you.
Paul Rhoda Grant, to be followed by Christine Graham.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I would like to also congratulate Sandra White on securing this debate on such an important subject, and also like to welcome past colleagues and campaigners to the gallery as well. Dementia will increase because people are living longer, and therefore there's more people susceptible to developing dementia. That said, proportionately the number of people developing dementia is falling. Living longer is a good thing, and we use life expectancy levels to demonstrate the economic and social well-being of our society and indeed our country's progress against others. Dementia care is treated differently from other health conditions. Care is seldom provided within the NHS, and this means that patients often pay for their care in the care sector. No one's suggesting that care should be delivered in hospital, but there is a disparity between conditions and what aspects of their care a person must pay for. Most people with dementia want to live and die at home, but they cannot have that happen without high-quality care services available to them. I have constituents who have been moved huge distances from home to access diagnosis and specialist services, taking them away from what is familiar, which is really bad for someone with dementia. And it also increases the strain on the family, forcing them to leave home for days just to be able to visit, not to mention the cost of doing that. There seems to be a hierarchy of conditions and their treatment within our health service. If you can be cured, no expense is spared. If you cannot, your experience is altogether different. While the NHS has had its funding protected to a greater extent, local authorities, where dementia care falls, have faced severe cuts which impact on services. I've spoken to care workers who specialise on dementia, and they believe with the right interventions, both from care workers and using modern technology, they can keep people at home and safe for much longer. With one client, they used a recording of her daughter's voice, telling her mother not to go out when the front door was opened at night. However, where family are present, they also need support as well. Unpaid family carers have told me of being unable to get a night's sleep because their loved one does not settle. They can't leave them alone, and they have no time to themselves. They in turn become ill, and this means that two people need intervention rather than just one. The right support can keep people home longer, and this provides them with a better quality of life. Those providing paid care for people with advanced disease need to know that person's history. It was once described to me as a sugary bookshelf. The bottom of the bookshelf had your values, your early memories, and as you lived, you began to fill the bookshelves higher with your memories and experience. When you developed dementia, it was like someone had started shaking your sugary bookshelf. The first books to fall were the ones at the top, the most recently added memories, the new and short-term memories. And as time went on, more and more memories were lost, and the bookcase shook more, and the contents on the lower shelves were lost as well. And at this point, a person regresses back to their early values and early memories. The knowledge of a person's history helps carers identify their needs and values at that stage of the condition. And this was explained to me in a story of a woman who was in care but became very distressed and aggressive when taking part in activities in communal areas of the home. She was happy and placid in her own room, but got very upset when mixing socially. And it transpired that she was of a generation where a woman going out, properly dressed, would always wear a hat. They got her a hat, and she thoroughly enjoyed social activities because she felt she was there and properly dressed for the occasion, because that was where she was in her knowledge and indeed her values. And it sounds simple, and in some ways it is, but we can't do that unless we know the person that is being cared for and the care is patient-centred. We need to find ways of providing this, that someone's welfare does not depend on their condition, or worse still, their wealth. A caring society must be able to provide cradle from the grave, regardless of the condition.
And the last of the open debate contributions is from Christine Graham.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I congratulate Sandra White in securing this debate and those in the gallery who've stayed it out this long. And I note what Jeremy Balfour said about 90,000 people suffering from dementia. But I want to talk about one case, because unfortunately, as you get older, sometimes you see your friends succumbing to it. It's a dreadful, slow killer of personality. The first time I noticed this friend of mine was slightly different was when we were listening to jazz, and she was sort of semi-detached from it and smiling at all the wrong places. And I thought that she was perhaps slightly deaf. That was the first time. The second time, I was at brunch at her house where they tried to make me talk politics against my will, and she served up her homemade soup and forgot the cutlery. And I didn't really think much of it at the time. But gradually, other things happened along the way. One day we were on the bus, and she just turned to me and said, "Christine, I've forgotten where you live." And it just ate away at her a bit at a time. The blessing for her was she wasn't distressed. She wasn't aggressive. She became childlike. When she didn't remember where I lived, I just said, "That's okay. I'll take you to it. That's all right." So you just took it as it was. She used to be a wonderful watercolour painter. And I've got some of them in my house. And one Christmas, a few months before she died, she came to my house and I said, "These are your paintings." "Are they?" she said, and just smiled. However, there was a funny side to it, because all her life she just drank wine. And I offered her husband, who was also a friend of mine, a whiskey. She says, "I'll take one of those, a great big whiskey." So she's obviously forgotten that she was only a wine drinker. But that was the only light bit of it. The bit that I did not see was the bit where her good husband, and also a good friend, had contained this in his house, in the bungalow, in the back garden where they used to play tennis on the big lawn at the back that they kept for that purpose, so that he covered it up. He managed to cover it up and support her right up till the week before she died. And only then, and he found it very difficult, was to have to put her in a care home. And the other tragedy for this friend of mine is that her mother had suffered from dementia. And years before, she had said to me, "Christine, I hope it never happens to me that happens to my mother." "Oh," I says, "that'll never happen to you." And there it was. So there's one story of one man and one woman and how it affected her. Of course, for some people, it makes them very aggressive, because just recently I went to a meeting in Midlothian of carers and their partners and husbands and wives who suffered from dementia. And I met a woman there I'd known for a very long time who'd been involved in a political campaign. She wasn't in the same politics as me, but it was to save a community centre. And I didn't notice the dementia that was eating away at her at the time, and her husband had to tell me she was suffering. Then she told me herself, she said, "I've got dementia, Christine." And she became more and more aggressive. And she picked up all the cups and saucers and piled them up, was tidying everything up beneath us. And I could see it building up in her. So her personality had also changed in a different way. But what that group did, apart from assessing those with the dementia while they were there, is after half an hour, the carers went into a room together. And I sat in on them. And they never said much. And one woman began to talk about her husband and what she had to do, and she couldn't continue. And then I later got an email about it, which I'm not going to share with the Chamber because I don't like doing that kind of thing. But you realised, and I saw her later escorting her husband into the car, like a child taking his hand, that this woman, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks in a year, never had a moment to herself apart from that little bit of respite. So I think when we're talking numbers, which is absolutely right, the variance in how this attacks people, and if they've got nobody to care for them, I don't know how they manage, is something we really must address and support the carers who do this day in, day out, and often do it discreetly. Thank you.
I now call on Graham Day to respond to the debate for around 7 minutes or so, Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I want to thank those members who've remained behind to make their contributions this evening, particularly that moving contribution from Christine Graham. I can congratulate Sandra White for lodging the motion and for her commitment to this agenda over the last 10 years. And can I also, as others, have acknowledged the patience shown by those in the gallery in waiting for this debate to take place. Members have made a number of important points, and pick up particularly in Tom Arthur's point about the Carer Positive initiative. I would encourage members to follow his advice on that. I've certainly done it. But I would also encourage members to consider perhaps going on a dementia awareness course for them and their staff, something else that I did last year. It was certainly eye-opening. It was certainly helpful for the way in which my office deals with the caseload that comes to us around dementia. And let's be honest about it, it's an increasing caseload. But more recently, as Veterans Minister, I visited the Erskine Care Home in Edinburgh, an absolutely wonderful facility that has a particular focus on dementia. In the course of that visit, they asked me if I would try on the dementia suit. And, you know, as officials tend to be, they were a bit concerned about the Minister doing this. But I actually wanted to try it to see what it was like. And that was even more eye-opening because the sheer physical effort, the mental fatigue from concentrating for a few moments simply to pour a cup of tea or take the top off a jelly carton was exhausting. And when you consider the strain that must place on people suffering from dementia, particularly when they're that older, it really does bring home to you the debilitating nature of this illness. Returning to the kind of broad themes of tonight, the development and signing of the Charter, I think, represents a great coming together of all the parties of this chamber, because it has been a cross-party and external stakeholder effort. In recognition of the importance of this agenda and of improving not only the care, but ensuring the wider social inclusion and civic participation of people with dementia and their carers, and we must stress that it's and their carers. Over the last 10 years, we've been privileged to benefit from the experience, the passion and the expertise of people with lived experience of dementia, those with the illness and those who are looking after them. The Scottish Dementia Working Group is a long-established organisation that sought tirelessly to bring the experiences of its members, all of whom have dementia, to the development of national policy, to effect changes in the design and the delivery of services and supports. And I think however far we've come owes a lot to that contribution. The National Dementia Carer Group, NCAN, the Dementia Carers Voices project have brought the experiences of carers to the forefront. In more recent years, they've been joined by Tide and Deep. And I want to thank all those groups for giving their time and their dedication to improving the lives of people with dementia, because without them, as I said, we could not develop truly meaningful action on dementia. And whilst we still have some way to go, there's no doubt we have made progress. I also want to give recognition to a wide and growing range of organisations that have been influential in supporting and challenging government, the health boards, now of course integration joint boards, to make improvements in dementia care in accordance with the Charter. That list includes Alzheimer's Scotland, the Alliance, the University of the West of Scotland, and a range of academic research, charity and statutory bodies. But I also want to note those at the forefront of delivering innovation in dementia support, including the award-winning Kerry Connections in my own constituency, who really deliver on the living well with dementia ethos. In developing Scotland's first national dementia strategy, we engaged with stakeholders on the human rights principles that are at the core and should be at the core of the Charter. That strategy was produced in 2010, and the following year, when we produced Scotland's first standards of care for dementia, the Charter of Rights was again crucial in underpinning all of the key standards in that document. The dementia standards still apply and set out individuals' entitlements, including in the area of diagnosis, the right to be treated with dignity and respect, the right to access all possible support services that are available, and the right to retain as independent a life as possible as part of the wider community. And that's where an organisation like Kerry Connections is so good. It's at the heart of the community. People aren't isolated because of their dementia. They are part of the society of that town. The standards also set out the right of people with dementia to have carers who are well supported to carry out that caring role. The human rights principles set out in the Dementia Charter and Dementia Standards have informed all the policy initiatives, such as the 2 national workforce programmes, as well as our national post-diagnostic service and our work in acute and specialist NHS dementia care. They've also helped to inform the inspection of services, such as the Major Care Inspectorate report on dementia in care homes, and work of institutions such as the Scottish Public Services Ombudsman. Key to all those developments has been an embedding of principles that mean that people with dementia and their carers are central to and active participants in decisions made in care, treatment and support. And that's how it should be. We recognise that dementia is and will remain one of our foremost challenges. It's well understood that more people are living longer, and that positive development means, of course, more people will live long enough to develop Alzheimer's diseases. Our big-ticket policies in dementia, integration of health and social care, the Carers Act, and now the Social Care Reform Programme are designed to help address this demographic shift. And if we haven't got it right all of the time, and of course we haven't, it's still the intent, the drive is there to make this happen. We've welcomed Alzheimer's Scotland's Fair Dementia Care Report this year. And to respond to Sandra White's ask on behalf of the Cabinet Secretary, she is considering its recommendations as part of the Social Care Reform Programme. And we continue to work with all partners to support implementation of the 2017-20 National Dementia Strategy. This includes the commitment to improve referrals into dementia post-diagnostic support, where we have recognised that this service has not yet reached enough people. We've also extended free personal care to the under-65s, and free personal care currently benefits over 77,000 older and disabled people in Scotland. The Dementia Charter of Rights has also influenced the suite of carers' rights we've now established under the Carers Act, including that each carer's right to a personalised plan to identify what's important to them. And as we all know, carers have the rights to be listened to in assessing the needs of the cared for person and in planning when the person looked after comes home from hospital. And I know we still have some way to go in the delivery of that, but we are on the right track. And they have rights to information about support, including through a carer information and advice service in every area. All these rights are summarised in the Carers Charters. Also earlier this year, we announced a review of mental health legislation in Scotland to improve the rights and the protections of persons, including those with dementia, who may be subject to the existing provisions of mental health, incapacity or adult support and protection legislation, and to remove barriers to those caring for their health and welfare. The review is focusing on how the views of people with the lived experience can be part of that decision-making process. We've also consulted on a number of changes, Presiding Officer, to the adults with incapacity legislation last year, including power of attorney and guardianship orders, and we'll incorporate ideas for reform of adult incapacity law and those coming from the review of learning disability and autism into the findings of the mental health review to form an overarching review of mental health and incapacity law. But to conclude, Presiding Officer, to build on all our partnership work on dementia, Programme for Government said that we will consult on a 4th National Dementia Strategy next year. And it's important that everyone with a locus in this feeds into that process. Our commitment as a government to this agenda is strong. I think we've heard tonight the commitment of this Parliament to this agenda is strong. And it's one I think that is shared by every member in this chamber. I think that's been absolutely abundant tonight in this short and very late debate. Again, apologies for the lateness of the debate. I want to thank members for their contribution, and I want to thank those in the gallery for their contribution and for their presence here tonight. Presiding Officer.
That concludes the debate. Thank you to everyone involved, including our guests in the gallery, and this meeting is closed.